If you can judge a wise man by the color of his skin, mister, you're a better man than I. These are the words from a song called Amazing. I think it was back in the 80s or 90s. They were very popular. There used to be a band called Aerosmith. I never thought I would say that there used to be a band called Aerosmith. Hi, my name is Karma Dendrup, and this being another Wednesday, it's time for #MyTake. I've reached X, and while there are not many words that start with X, one which I chose to speak about today, which is very close to my heart, especially given the fact that Bhutan earns most of its revenue from tourism, and there are even more plans to amp it up. And alongside that, we have GMC, which has humongous targets with regard to how many visitors and how many air travelers will be using and coming to Galepu. So today the letter is X, and the word is xenophobia. Back in college, in my first year in college, an Assamese girl came to me, a senior of mine, came to me in the canteen and said she's making this documentary on racial or discrimination in Delhi and the NCR region. And she asked me to speak in that documentary. Half jokingly, I responded to her by saying that, first of all, I declined. Secondly, I said I won't make an interesting subject or a person to speak in the documentary, because I said that I don't find anything wrong with how so-called Chinkies or the Northeast, and we are clubbed and put in that same bracket, how we are treated in Delhi. Because I said, in like manner, when people from the plains or people from other parts of India or other countries visit our region, we are also similarly discriminative. Now, like the lyrics of the song that I started with, if you can judge a wise man by the color of his skin, mister, you're a better man than I. I, with almost 40 years of living, but the more I've traveled, the more I've seen, the more I have interacted with people, I find almost no difference between how an Indian man or woman sees the world, how a Chinese man or a woman, American. On the base level, because of our spiritual leaning or maybe our upbringing, there might be things that we like, there might be things that we dislike, and how we respond to situations. But by and large, especially given the fact that in Vajrayana Buddhism, in Mahayana Buddhism, there is a concept called Teshik Nyingbo, the Buddha nature. And all of us, forget about humans, even animals, insects, all of us, according to the Mahayana and Vajrayana teachings, have this Buddha nature. So I don't find a reason, or I don't see the logic or the rationale behind discriminating. I don't see, or it hasn't been reported, at least here in Bhutan, any racist crimes. But elsewhere in the world, especially in the so-called first world, second world, because we are apparently in the third world, you see a lot of racial crime. In fact, you see presidencies, election campaigns being designed around it, and people even winning because of that. For me, like I shared, at least here in Bhutan, when you look at even the building that I'm living in, I can almost bet that it was constructed by Indian laborers and workers. And I also had the privilege and honor of making a documentary for the 50 years of Project Tantak here in Bhutan. And all roads in Bhutan were constructed by Indian laborers. Many of them even lost their precious lives. And if I hadn't made the documentary, I wouldn't have known. But there in Dewathang, there is a stupa, a churten, to commemorate the people who have lost their lives in construction of roads here in Bhutan. Having said that, I look at the news, my old office, the BBS, and I see so many bridges, hospitals, constructions. I mean, diplomatically and politically, India must have their reason behind providing aid to Bhutan, and all the major power projects are also now, the private industry of India is also coming in with the Tata Group and the Adani groups. So those also are Indian funded or in Indian partnership. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I say this from the perspective of being Bhutanese and from love and affection for Bhutanese, because I feel when you start looking at the world through a myopic lens, when you start seeing people and you start seeing skin color, you start seeing sexual orientation, when you start seeing not the man or the woman and the heart that beats underneath that chest of that person, but you start seeing region, you start seeing language, then we lead a smaller and a more petty life. And I don't want fellow Bhutanese to head in that direction. It's a genuine practice on my part to not discriminate and not to be racist. The irony of the whole situation is, especially for us Bhutanese, is as Buddhist, while the identity of the Buddha is still debatable whether he is Nepali or he is Indian, the most learned ones of the Buddha Dharma in the Mahayana school, the Gendru and Chokni, Nagarjuna, Shantideva, Asanga, Vasubandhu, Lebe, all of these beings are Indian. If we look at our Choshom and our altars also, many of the Druptops, if we have any of the 84 Druptops, I haven't heard of any 84 Druptops, the Drupto Gechu, Chajiki, Wang that we get here in Bhutan. All of them are Indians. So that's what I wanted to share, that we lead a saner and a better life when we look at the other man or a woman not as Indian, Chinese, African, Japanese, American, European, Scandinavian. I make it a practice not to do that. I also make it a practice not to look at anybody and judge them for their sexual orientation or for their lifestyle. I am very, very empathetic of the LGBTQ plus community. And I think we here in Bhutan find ourselves in a very, very unique and fortunate time and space thanks to the Wangchuk dynasty. And I think we need to make the best of it by not judging the book by its cover and not judging people by the color of their skin or from which region that they come from. I would also like to end on a note, like a blessing that all of us have got from COVID, from Corona, the coronavirus, which is until everyone is safe, no one is safe. And until we embrace and accept the fact that it is a shared planet and that all of us are sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, sisters and brothers, I think the possibilities of what we can achieve by living a life where we see the other person as a fellow being also drowning and trying to surface in this ocean of samsara, we would have led a good life. And at the end of the day, all of us are here for a temporary time. So I hope that this video made sense to you and it helps you at least to think in that direction. Thank you so much.